Most D20s do not warrant a long-form video review. But then again, most D20s don't use electro and neodymium magnets. They don't float in the air, and they don't have a price tag of over $200. So today I'm going to pull back the Arcane curtain and tell you everything you need to know about the Ascendice Levitating D20 by the Shop of Many Things. What it is, how it works, and some of its features and uses that might not be immediately apparent, as well as some minor safety warnings that you might want to be aware of. Prologue. The disclaimer. Real quick, you should know that while this is a high-ticket item, I did not purchase this myself. It was sent to me by the Shop of Many Things, who is responsible for its creation. And you should also know that the link I've provided in the description is an affiliate link, meaning I get a commission on any purchases made using the link at no additional cost to you. So while they did not ask me to make this video, and I'm intending for this to be an honest review, you should still keep that in mind. But now let's actually get into it. Chapter 1. The Abode. Since I've already opened this previously, I took the liberty of reassembling the packaging so you can see what it looks like when you first get it. The box itself is fittingly the best packaging I've ever seen for a D20, as it should be. And when you open it up, you'll find 3 things. Mine came with 3 Ascendice D20s. 3 is not the default, but it is an option, and we'll talk more about that later. Of course, it came with a power cord, and it came with a cork cover for the matte black electromagnetic base. This actually didn't come with any instructions, but there's not much to it. I'm gonna take out your base, place the cork cover on top if you wish, get yourself a power card, and plug it in. We'll talk about this more, but you should know right now that the base is full of powerful electromagnets, and the dice are full of neodymium magnets as well. So just don't set your phone on the base or put this next to your computer. Anyway, once you have the base plugged in, it is as simple as taking your die and setting it in the middle. And there you go. And I'll get some up-close B-roll so you can see this in HD.
Oh yeah.
And there you go, you now have a levitating D20, but there is more to it than that. Chapter 2, the Arcana. First of all, you may be wondering, is it really that simple? Do you just take the die and set it above the base and now you have a floating D20? Sort of. There is a sweet spot in the middle of the base in which the die will simply settle into what I describe as a magnetic pocket, and now it's floating. And let me go ahead and say this out of the gate. Once it is floating, it's a very surreal experience. And every time I do it, I know there's science behind it, but it still feels like magic to me every time. Like I was saying, there is a sweet spot in the middle of the base. About an 1.5 inch circle where if you set the die, it will float. But outside of the circle, you'll find that the Ascendice sticks itself directly to the base. To understand why this happens, we can look at a diagram that the Shop of Many Things created for their Kickstarter. The base itself has 4 electromagnets, 4 magnetic field sensors, and 1 larger stabilizing magnet. These electromagnets and sensors are essentially what keep the die afloat. But if you go outside of that zone of sensors and electromagnets, there's nothing really to keep it in the air anymore, which is why it sticks to the base. And I believe it's sticking to the stabilizing magnet itself, not the electromagnets. Let's take a closer look at the dice themselves. First of all, the Ascendice are 30mm D20s, which is noticeably larger than a standard D20, which is 18mm. Check them out, they're floating together. Now, like I said before, each of these D20s has a neodymium magnet inside it, but each of these magnets has just a bit of wiggle room inside the die, which allows the magnet to orient itself to the magnetic field created by the base, independent of the die itself. And it's because of that free rotation that allows you to orient the die any way you want, and it will stay in place while hovering above the base. And again, like I said before, keep electronics away from this if you want them to continue to work. I like to think of it as the arcane aura that throws off the modern electronics nearby. But also it's magnets that will destroy your devices. Now let's take a brief interlude and then talk about how to actually use the Ascendice. Interlude, the Arcane Almanac. If you're enjoying this video so far and enjoy hearing about unique tabletop products and dice like this, then you should consider joining the Arcane Almanac. It's a weekly digest of tabletop tidbits that I send out every Saturday morning, and it is completely free to join with just your email using the link in the description. It includes things like Dice of the Week, Choose Your Own Adventures, Dungeon Puzzles, and more. And if you feel that you're getting something out of this video, then please consider liking it and subscribing to my channel if you want to inform YouTube that you would like to see more stuff like it. Anyway, back to the Ascendice. Chapter 3, the Performance. At the end of the day, whether this thing is powered by magic or magnets, it doesn't matter, because it floats. That's just what it looks like, but one of the big questions I had when I first got it was, what does it sound like? When I first plugged this in, I expected there to be a sound, either a buzz or a hum or something to indicate that it was on, but there's not. It is completely silent, which is great because if you're not actively using this all the time, then you at least want to have it on display on a shelf floating for all to see. And as it turns out, you can do exactly that. I double checked with the Shop of Many Things and they said that you can leave this plugged in and floating for as long as you'd like. And for me, half the fun is walking into my room and instantly feeling like a wizard wandering through his laboratory full of arcane instruments and devices. Or, you know, a D20 floating in the air. But what can you really do with this? Obviously, it floats, but because it floats, it means it can also spin. It's one of the first things I did. I wanted to see if I could just spin it away. And it turns out, because there is virtually no resistance, other than a little bit of air resistance, this thing spins for a long time. Now, I initially thought it might be, 30 minutes or something. And I actually had started making a time lapse to just see how long it would take to slow down. Turns out that it spins for literal days. I don't know how long it takes for it to slow down. I also don't know whether the electromagnets prevent it from actually slowing down because maybe they're adding some kind of constant force to it. But one of my favorite things to do is to stack things on top of the die while it's floating. For example, you can take the cork base if you'd like and set it on top, and now the base is floating as well. Theoretically, you could have a very large floating tower of dice. You can really take that hobby that you have between your rounds of combat to a whole new level. And I believe that you could probably replace this cork cover with anything you wanted, provided that it wasn't metal. For example, I could see someone 3D printing a cover for this that would make this look even more magical. But listen, I know what you're thinking. That's all good and fun, but this is a D20, damn it! What about the rolling? Well, I'm glad that you asked. Chapter 5, The Roll. Now, according to their Kickstarter and product pages, the Ascendice is a balanced die, and so far I have no reason to believe otherwise. You can, of course, roll this anywhere you want, provided that the surface is not made of metal or, magnets. So if you want to save it for a dramatic roll, you leave it on there, you pull it off, and then you roll it. Can you use its actual levitation for a roll? Well, sort of. Let me explain. You can't really roll the die directly on the base itself because, like I said before, it will stick to the base. But if you take the die ahead of time, roll it, shake it around, whatever, and then float it above the base and give it a nice spin, you can give this a good tap and it will land on the base. This is still a very random roll. I got a 7 in this case. Now, if you do roll it this way, I recommend keeping the cork cover on so you can protect the base and the die. But if you're someone who ever rolls in a dice cup, or for the industry folks out there, a dice deli, you could just scoop it out of the air. That's an 11. And while I wouldn't recommend this necessarily, I do believe you could probably hit this with a foam baseball bat or like a Nerf sword or something and let it roll onto the ground. Again, not recommended. Do so at your own risk. And I'm sure there's a lot more creative ways to roll this that I just haven't thought of yet. So let me know your ideas for rolling this in the comments and maybe I can try that out in another video. But now the real question, is all of this worth the price tag? Chapter 6, The Coin. So if you want to purchase the most basic form of the Ascendice, which is a matte black base and a single D20, you're looking at a price of $200 US. You can add 50 to get a walnut case, or 2 extra dice for an additional 85. You can also do pretty much any combination of those factors up to getting 3 walnut cases and 3 D20s for a total of $600. These are at least the current prices at the time of filming. But just looking at the base price of $200, is the Ascendice worth it? Well, like I said at the beginning of this video, I did not purchase this myself, so I'm not one to tell you whether this is worth it or not. The question I can ask myself is, if this were to vanish suddenly, would I spend $200 to get it again? And I probably would, but I really love this stuff, and I have a huge collection of dice that I'm always trying to add to. And for me, this is an amazing piece of decor and novelty in addition to a D20. And I've also had the chance to try it out for a long time, and I know that I like it a lot. And I think that's how you have to think about this as well. If this will bring you a lot of joy and will not break your bank, then maybe it's worth it for you. But let me know in the comments. Is this something that you would buy, or something that you've purchased already? Why or why not? And I'm curious to hear your thoughts on all of the above. Thank you for watching and have a great day.